I try.
Right.
I try every time to schedule, because I'm very interested and also keen to see the feedback. As I see the way of giving the feedback, of launching the discussion, I could learn also and have a lot of feedback. So I'm really interested in. But it's question of time preparing and also that's the way. But one day it comes. I stay.
Yeah, that's right.
Network with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed. Yeah, of course, we are trying to improvise here because as we wait for the speaker, I don't know what happened to him, because as you could see that he disappeared abruptly, and we hope that everything is fine where he is in Arusha.
Yeah,
and that will be joining us. And I don't know if maybe Liu Cheng, maybe you can let us know a little bit about this program, Peace Studies, because I'm sure that also your students are eager also to hear you again, but also I think that could be also interesting to us.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
George.
sorry.
Yeah,
Cheng.
so sorry. This lecture a little bit program. Maybe I think he's out of line for some reason. Yeah. So hello everybody. I'm Liu Chen, a professor for history, also peace studies at Nanjing University, China. So Nanjing, I think all of you know Beijing and Shanghai, but Nanjing is also one of the biggest city in China. It's the Asian capital of China. So in Nanjing University, we have a UNESCO chair on peace studies. So since 2017, but before, about 20 years ago, so we make a decision to introduce peace studies into China. This program is based on the cooperation between Nanjing University and the Coventry University in UK. So and then the aim to introduce peace study in China is because China is a big country, yeah, especially New China. We much know about the violence, but to connect the violence to peace, but especially for students, we don't know too much how to think about non-violence. So this is the major reason to introduce the peace study into Nanjing University. Also, Nanjing is a city, during the Second War, Japanese soldiers invaded China. Nanjing also caused the Nanjing Massacre. So in this city, the university in this city, we have the duty to share the different kind of conception about the peace and how to achieve peace by a peaceful means. So this program for this lecture is many years ago. George know about it. I go to Germany in Fichte. We discussion with Egon Speak and us George together to discussion to how to arrange this program, especially to how to introduce peace to African countries. So this is the background. Thank you very much. Today, I also bring some of my students in my courses for peace studies, also attending today's lecture in China, Nanjing, is evening, about nearly 10 o'clock. I did later, but very sorry. Our students couldn't listen much more about our African scholars talk about very interesting topic, especially about the several countries of African. Okay, yeah. It's very interesting for us, especially Chinese students. They know much more about American, England, Germany, but not too much about the Africans' peacekeeping or peace activities for something, some cases studies. So sorry about it, but I think maybe he will come back soon.
Yeah, that's right. That's our hope. Thank you so much for sharing. Of course, you know that Liu Cheng is one of the pioneers in this project, Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, together with Egon Spiegel and Lester Kurtz. And we already also talked about students from the University of Fechter in Germany also will join us next semester. And of course, I also ask you, as I did before, you can also invite your students. Our students are now, sitting their end of semester examinations, and so we don't have them at the moment. But whenever there is time, definitely, they are all welcome to join us. And so, how do we proceed? Really, this is a big problem now, since I don't seem to receive any communication from the speaker. And Howard, are you there? Howard Richards, are you there? Maybe not. But if somebody has an idea, really, you're welcome to share with us.
Okay.
Yes, please, Afiz.
Talking about the transitional justice, in my own view, I think it can be divided into two. We have internal transitional justice and external transitional justice. External transitional justice could be viewed from the perspective of the colonizer that colonized African country. How do they try to transit the power to the Africa? So that's an aspect. And another aspect is transition of power within Africa from one government to another government. Because we know every government has a tenure. So there must be transition of power. So looking back from the colonizer, from the British colonialism, talking about the colonialism system, we know that the British invade Africa with the view of trying to civilize and trying to do enlightenment to them. I will use Nigeria as a case study. Now, before the amalgamation of 1900, the British have been in Nigeria as far back as 14th to 15th century. So we have two forms of colonization ruling system in Africa, in Nigeria then. We have direct and we have indirect. Because Nigeria is divided into two protectorates. We have Northern Protectorate and Southern Protectorate. And the British observed that the part of Nigeria that are Southerners are more enlightened in terms of education, while the Northerners are using an Islamic jurisdiction or Islamic Sharia. But in the Southern, they have this idea of a democratic or check and balance system of government. A case study of that is Oyomesi and Oyo. These Oyomesi are the council of people that put the king, the power of the king, into check. So if the king wants to misbehave or out beyond his own jurisdiction of power, so the Oyomesi will be the one to check it. So we have this on southern part of Nigeria, that is southwest of Nigeria, the Yoruba people. They have this system that the king, it is not the Alpha and Omega. There must be some chiefs that will be a supportive as a minister to put a check on him. So this system has been what has been operating before the coming of the white men to Nigeria. And coming, they have already noticed that there is a system of government on ground, which they think it may be difficult for them to try to run or rule them directly, because they have their own head. They have someone that they take permission and control from, order from. So with this, they believe that they can use all the elders as the king, I mean, as they took to control the entire population, to control the populace. So in this view, they now started giving instruction to the kings, why the kings will now relate same to the people in the country. So the same thing happened in the northern part of Nigeria. So they are using the leaders or their kings as a way of ruling the people, and they was able to achieve this. But as time goes on, there is this idea of missionary, because when they think that as they are going with political ideology, they cannot actually achieve their aim. They now introduce, I think around 1940, they introduced what we call CMS, Christian movement. And they started establishing a formal school, because there was informal school then in southern part of Nigeria, because there is no way we can teach our children some form of proverb, except that we gather them at night and try to tutor them what the culture say, what the culture is all about. But with the coming of the white man, by introducing the missionary movement, so there comes the Christianity. And they started establishing schools with a 3 mission: to fight sickness. That's first mission. The second mission was that to fight ignorance. And the third mission was to fight poverty. These are the 3 cardinal points of the Christianity that they want to achieve, because they are teaching them they are giving them the knowledge, not because they want them to have the economic power or social power or political power, but for them to be enlightened on how to read and understand Bible. That was the basics. But as time goes on, the people of the Southerners begins to be exposed to what education actually means. They discover that education is power to liberation, to set themselves free from any form of external ruling. So with this, they begin to be developing their own idea, and from there they started to be interrogate and attack and revolt some form of British system of government on ground. And they started specifically in 1922. Then we have various from Yoruba. We have Abat Macaulay that has his own movement against the British, that we need an independence, we need transition of power, and there must be justice in the transition of this power to the people, to the indigenous people of Nigeria. But having tried to amalgamate the Northern Protectorate with Southern Protectorate with a sole purpose that any wealth acquired from the South must be used to inaugurate the progress and development in the North. So this has been, I want us to know this, getting wealth from the South to inaugurate development, to accelerate development in the northern part of Nigeria. And this has been on guard since present. So this amalgamation that has been together, the Southerners have been aware of the Northern, and the Northern are also aware of the Southern. Since they know they have a common land, and they know that they have a common mission and vision on how to gain independence from the British rule. So they begin to be having different forms of meetings together, so that they are just, especially when the Ghanaian acquired independence. I think in 1956, if I'm not mistaken. Hello? Am I communicating, sir?
Yes, you are. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, sir. Because I'm trying to work along the time, because I know by 3 I should be able to stop anything if there is any conversation or question that wants to go with it. You know, I'm still speaking the external transitional justice. But there is no way we can talk about this without historical background for actually understand what's actually meant by transitional justice. So on and on, this has been going. And in this Southern Protectorate, we have the Southwest, we have the Southeast. the southwest was occupied by Yoruba people, while the southeast was occupied by Igbo people, while the northern part of the Nigeria was occupied by Fulani and Hausa. So that's why they said that the major ethnic groups in Nigeria are three. So apart from this, we have like over 250 ethnic groups. We have the minorities, but the major ethnic groups are just that three: Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. And the transition of power has been within these three tribes. So when Ghana had their independence, it accelerated the independence of Nigeria and made the southern part of Nigeria to propose to present their independence in 1956. But it was against by the North that they are not ready for independence. As the North is not ready for the independence, it brought the southern part of Nigeria back to go back to see what they can do to try to convince the northern part of the Nigeria. So at last, they were given independence in 1960. So this independence in 1960, and this will actually take us to internal transitional justice. In 1960 that they had, we have the First Republic of Nigeria in 1960. Then we are using parliamentary system of government, different from what we are using now. Federal system of government is what we are using now. But then we are using regional system of government, which is parliamentary form. So we have the likes of in 1945, we like the likes of since that 1922 of a Clinton Constitution, the indigenous voice has begins to be heard. They started putting them in part of those people that will be in the system of government. So they try to regionalize the country based on the tribe. We have the western region, which is southwest. We have the eastern region, which is southeast, and we have northern region, which is the northern part of the country. So these are the cardinal three regional system of government we had. So we have Awolowo in the western part, while we have Nnamdi Azikiwe in the eastern part. We have Sardauna in the northern part. But eventually, they were able to gain independence. But in the independence, we have Azikiwe as ceremonial president, while we have Tafawa Balewa as the prime minister. Until 1963, that they're supposed to have election, a lot of things happened. That there were a lot of crises. That there are some laws that brings out. There are some issue of marginalization, the issue of distribution of the nation's wealth based on the percentage of the population or geographical location of the people. But that one has gone. But until 1993, that's when Abiola is about to emerge as the president of Nigeria, although unfortunately he was unable to be the president of Nigeria. He was the one that made the move of reparation fees. Reparation in the forms of that the British are owing us some certain amount of things if we have to calculate the way we are enslaved, and all our economy has been running for over 100 years before the transition of power to the indigenous people. So
Hafiz,
yes, sir.
Hafiz, thank you very much. I think we can pause a little now, and then you can continue later. I would like to also invite Howard Richards, for also sharing a bit about the situation in Colombia, and then we will proceed. So thank you very much, everybody, for your patience. And but this time is quite useful for sure, despite the fact that the speaker is not here yet. Howard Richards, would you like to unmute and speak to us? Thank you. You have to unmute, please. You are still here.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I think these are fascinating, important discussions, and I think they apply not only in Africa but elsewhere. And I would start with the proposition that there cannot be sustainable peace without dignified livelihoods for the people. And there is a way to do this, and we call it unbounded organization. But also there's Economia Solidaria, which is another great tradition, not to mention Ubuntu and all the heritage of Africa. I don't, anybody disagree with that? Would anybody disagree that for lasting peace, we need dignified livelihoods for everyone? I don't think anyone would disagree. Well, this was built into the peace treaty in Colombia. The rebels and the Colombian government signed a treaty in Havana, Cuba, that the rebels would lay down their arms and there would be Economia Solidaria. But in practice, nothing has happened. What has happened is a sort of a show of Economia Solidaria, which consists of the government offering courses to poor people on how to start micro business and how to comply with the tax requirements and the health requirements so you can start your own business. Well, that's not Economia Solidaria. That's a poor excuse for it. There's a ministry of it. There are people who get degrees in it. There are professional people, but they all do things that don't actually solve the problem and that don't really respond to the sort of thing that Pope, I think it was John Paul II, gave a speech at the United Nations Commission for Latin America in which he urged a solidarity economy. It was very clear that what he meant by a solidarity economy is that the private sector, the public sector, everybody works together to comply with social human rights. And even though they have a whole profession of people make their living setting up cooperatives or doing whatever they call Economia Solidaria, there is no transfer of wealth. Maybe there is now with the new government. I'm speaking of what was the case before the new government. As far as I know, it hasn't changed. But maybe the new government will find a way to change that. That they, as they say in Spanish, they're giving gato por liebre, which means they're serving you cat meat when they promised you rabbit meat. So that's my 2 cents worth from. At least from this continent. I think it'd be very promising to develop something about the Chilean Civil War, where I think insights from peacekeeping in Africa would be very helpful. Also, the New Zealanders have been very helpful. The ambassador of New Zealand and the Maori people are all working very hard to achieve some sort of genuine peace in Chile. Okay. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you very much indeed. And as probably you might have heard, we are also trying in this platform, really using the talents and possibilities that are available to us through this forum, Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, to establish a master's degree in African Peace and Sustainability program. And of course, we are looking at how it's going to go about, but this is an idea that would like to develop together with you. And again, as you know, we have already also established a network, which is known as African Peace and Development Network. And this will be in charge, responsible for these webinars, for example, as well as the publications that we have. And also, we are planning to have a conference, which will be both, will be online as well as in person. And so please, as we continue discussing these, remember that we're going to ask for your ideas, how to proceed and what to include in our programs, how to make them more effective or efficient. And so I thank you very much also for your flexibility, really, in these uncertain situations, such as what happened today. But of course, you know, also with the challenges of technology, sometimes it lets us down. But we hope that we will improve the way we work in the future. So thank you very much, Howard Richards, for sharing with us the situation in Colombia and of course, Hafiz in Nigeria. Because here you can get examples from all over the world. So anyone who is also interested in sharing with us, please feel free to speak to us. Or you can put us your question or comment in chat, and we will read it out for you. Hafiz, are you still around?
Very much around. I thought you are expecting other people to share their view. That was why I silent.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I asked Howard to, because he had raised his hand, and but of course you can continue. And,
okay, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Because now you are saving us, because otherwise we can't have a presentation.
So the transition of government from the British happens in 1960, as I said, and we have parliamentary system of government. The running of the government activities keep going until 1963 that we are about to have another election. But the election was held on that 1963. The election brings a lot of issues and tension and crises, conflict within the northern and southern protectorate called Nigeria. And even that was why Awolowo observed that Nigeria is not a nation, but a mere geographical expression. Having said this in his book, Path to Nigeria Freedom, he said Nigeria is not a nation, but a mere geographical expression. So on this quote that we have a mere geographical expression, for us to have it as true or not, in 1966, we have the first military coup intervention in Nigeria. And this military coup truncated the democratic system of government that we have been experiencing since independence. So the military ruled to 1983-79. We have another civilian in 1983, Shehu Shagari. Afterward, the military took over. But what I'm trying to drive in is that for us to have justice transition of power, be it economy or politically, there must be a mechanism, a channel that we try to promote peaceful transition. So the peaceful transition in a democratic system of government, you have election. Just as we just concluded a presidential election yesterday in Nigeria. So this in 1966, that the military intervention discomfited a lot of things, and we have been struggling from then until 1999 that we have a perfect transition from the military rule of Abubakar Abdul-Salam. Abubakar was the military that handed over to the civilian, and we are still maintaining this the democratic system of government since that 1999 to present, although not without one problem or the other. But we thank God today that those people that are raising voice of marginalization have been involved in government, just as the case of Goodluck Jonathan, the former president after Umaru Yar'Adua in 2007. We have Umaru Yar'Adua, because Jonathan came from the middle belt, from the minority group, to emerge as the president. Afterwards, we have election that took Muhammadu Buhari into system of government. What I'm trying to say so far is that although it is rough, it is not that easy. We have been having consistent system, a democratic system of government since that 1999 to present. That is almost 24 years. So this system of government that we have is what is the voice of people. It was represent it's what represent the people generally from different aspects. So this transitional system that we just had election. So election is one of the means that we can use as a transitional justice point that we promote peace and happiness and harmony within the citizen as well as the system of government. And in a way, it's a way of checking an outrageous system of government. At least if you want to do any form of outrageous system or application of power, it ought to be within 4 years. After 4 years, we go into an election for people to decide if we are to continue to be their president or they want to change you, since it depends on the policy or the kind of system of ruling that that person adopted, if it is favors people or not. So this system of government, what I want to say in essence is that the electionary is one of the perfect way of transition of government, which pass the true means of justice, and for us to have the voice of people. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much indeed for your great service, Hafiz. Hafiz, you're always amazing. Thank you so much. And there is a question from Paul. I don't know whether, Paul, you can hear me. Would you like to maybe speak about this question and maybe explain a little bit about it? And then we'll see whether the participants can reply. Paul, please.
Sorry. Okay, you have to finish your breakfast. Sorry. I mean, the question was, we've sort of lost that concept of proxy war, and I don't know where the conversation was necessarily started here today, but we've kind of lost that concept of proxy war, I think, a little bit, even though it's latent even right now in discussions about Ukraine. But we tend to think of conflict or peace studies oftentimes in terms of how do we solve problems in small countries that are fighting, and I think that's a problematic approach to the issue at hand, in the sense that then it structures the UN or the US or the European Union or some other kind of hegemonic structure to be the one that solves the problem, and we've kind of lost the concept of what how global competition for hegemony might give structure to regional conflict. Anyway, so I'm not sure if that's still the case. I know that there are always regional causes, local causes for conflict. You can never totally say that all conflicts are caused by some outside force, but I'm just wondering about the way we think of the terms of debate, and I like the way that this debate places development, which again it maybe has some problematic connotations, but it places the idea that conflict is not something you solve at the moment of conflict, but conflict is something that is built, kind of baked into the society in one way or the other, and needs to be addressed at a structural level rather than a problem-solving level. Anyway, so that's kind of long-winded, but that would be my question, if anybody has any thoughts on that general theme. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for this great question. And yes, please, if somebody would like to comment or reply to that question, feel free to raise your hand or just put your answer in chat. And of course, we've heard from the northern part of Africa. I wonder whether, Joe, you are there to maybe share a little bit about your thoughts about this conversation from the southern African part of the region. Probably you are in Botswana now, or maybe you can also, try to share your views, your opinion, and of course, anybody else who is also willing to share, you are more than welcome.
Yes, I think, okay, I'm in a fairly peaceful, I'm in a relatively peaceful area in the world, I think. So I'm usually looking at what's happening in the world, online and stuff like that. But I did have a thought based on what Paul said, what Paul asked. In fact, I think it's kind of like a question, a question also to answer, because it's like, why do we even consider any kind of war as any kind of solution? Because I'm thinking, even the concept of the Cold War. Last week, the reason I loved the concept of rehumanization and I spoke about polarization is because there's a certain way entertainment polarizes the general population for political, for war. Like all wars political, but we don't see those elements. Oh, sorry about that. All war is political, but we don't see which elements of war are non-political, and those are the ones that fly under the radar. So I'm thinking, why are we trying to reinvent war to do it better, rather than try to do things differently altogether without including war? And the concept of global hegemony, I think that is a problem, because dominance has no room for a horizontal relationship. It always has to be top down. So then it becomes who's going to agree that someone else is more superior than them today? You understand? And then now it becomes, okay, I'm stronger than you. And that's a problem. Unfortunately, that's where we are when it comes to disagreements at a global level. And I think we have to think differently than trying to reinvent war in better ways.
Thank you so much, Joe, for your wonderful idea. And so I'm just looking around whether there is a question or comment. I don't seem to see a hand. The speaker is calling me, let me reply. Hello? Oh, sorry about that. You know, the speaker wasn't sure that he was speaking to us. It seemed somehow he continued speaking to himself, hoping that he was speaking to us, and that's a shame. But now he'll be joining us simply to conclude his talk, and yeah, so sorry for the inconvenience. So we'll see for see him for the last 20 minutes, and then we can close for today. So at least we use this first part as a discussion point, as it were. But I thank you for your resilience and understanding, and for sharing your own experiences without any preparation. But that's how things go. So let's hope that he'll be sharing again his screen, because he really had important things to share with us, for sure. I think as is preparing to join us, I can also mention to you about our books that, as you know, the first book was published by Springer and the second one is under review. And we extended actually the call for chapters for the third book. And we are now really finishing, accepting the papers, so that we can continue with the review, which actually already started, but then we thought for some reason that there were some papers that we could not afford to miss. And so we asked scholars to contribute their chapters. So that's where we are at the moment.
Ja, grüß Gott, Frau Faltermeier, Hubert Heindl am Apparat aus Regensburg. Ich rufe an zu meiner Nachkontrolle der Bilatiose. Ist das so?
Yeah, that's all right. I think you didn't know that it was live. Asa Mwambene. It seems.
I think, sir, our speaker no one is presenting. We don't meant to talk or say anything until the end of the discussion of the presenter. You should let him know. It's not as if you are not paying attention to him.
Yeah,
he's.
It seems that he. I don't know. I guess. Sorry, is struggling again, but let's see. He's just clicking on the link and see whether he can join us. He also mentioned internet issues. So Afizi, you were saying something that I didn't quite get.
What I was saying was that I think the speaker is supposed to understand our culture. That when the speaker is presenting, we are not meant to talk or do anything until the end of the presentation. It's not as if you are not paying attention to him. because he said he's speaking to himself when he was presenting, as if you are not paying attention to him, whereas you are actually paying attention.
Sorry, no. No, sorry, Hafiz, that's not what he meant. You know, he continued speaking to us, thinking that we were listening, we were hearing what he was saying, but we are not, you know, following. We couldn't hear him, we couldn't see him. So, yeah, so he continued speaking, yeah, expecting that we were actually listening, but unfortunately not.
Okay.
Right.
Masosa, we must apologize to our young scholar
Yes.
in the house, because this has never happened before. This is the first time. So, I mean, the new people that join us today, we have to apologize to them for the technical issue that we have from the speaker side, so that they can know that it is not always like that. They can always be joining us anytime that we have a series of webinars like this. They are always welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Hafiz. Really, you have represented us all, and I thank you. And again, of course, I also apologize for this unexpected situation, but luckily the speaker is now back with us. He thought he was with us, but he wasn't. So I can see that is connecting to audio.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all
I'm
right.
done.
So sorry. Please continue and with your presentation, and sorry for what happened.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So I don't know I ended where I was cut off, but maybe let me wrap up in 5 minutes. Let me touch on 3 basic ceasefire agreement and accords which are related to the Eastern DRC standoff. One is the Lusaka ceasefire agreement, which is an agreement that provided for inter-Congolese dialogue. That means after the 2 wars that, especially the second war that brought in about 7 countries in Africa, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Angola, and DRC itself, it necessitated to sign a ceasefire agreement in which Congolese were asked to, indulge into a inter-Congolese dialogue. So within the framework of the Lusaka ceasefire agreement, it provided a space for a transitional government that would be in place for some time, so that immediately after that transitional government for 2 years, then it will culminate to do an elections in 2005. And so the first ceasefire agreement, which is very important to the current state of instability in Eastern Congo, is the Lusaka ceasefire agreement. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
fine. And the second important ceasefire agreement, which is related to the current state of instability in Eastern Congo, is the Sun City Agreement of December 2002. The Sun City Agreement provided a lot of platform for the transition government, which was formed in June 2003. It provided for many other aspects of the national reconciliation and co-opting most of the armed groups into political parties, but were also integrated into the government. So most of the leaders of most of the armed rebel groups in Eastern Congo, within the formula 1+4. 1+4 means that the president of the country, who was Joseph Kabila, and the 4 vice presidents. Tshisekedi, the current president of Congo, were people who also, got an opportunity to be in government because of this process. And this formula also provided for that whatever seats which is available, be the ministerial posts or leadership of the national organizations that are like the leadership of the government, the leadership of the parliament, the judiciary, and ambassadorial posts. They're all shared by all these major political parties in Eastern Congo, which area were the armed rebel groups. And some of the armed rebel groups that were directly involved in this was included the Congolese Rally for Democracy, Congo Liberation Movement, Congolese Rally for Democracy Liberation Movement, Congolese Rally for Democracy National, LCDN, Mai Mai, Self-Defense Militia in Kivu, and many others. Of course, it excluded organizations like ADF, which is originally from Rwanda, and many others. But the most important aspect, which is of agreement, which is being mostly being referred by the current M23 or M23 rebel groups, is the Goma Peace Accord, which was signed between the government and the organization called CNDP. CNDP is Le Congolais National pour la Défense du People. It is in English, is the National Congress for the People's Defense, which is currently, you are seeing an organization called M23. M23 was the same CNDP in the past. And most of the issues that they are raising today, they are raising in terms of expressing that, you know, they are coming up now because of the failure of the implementation of the agreement that were provided for by both the Sun City Peace Agreement and the Goma Peace Accord, which spelled a number of things that needed to be in place, including the, I will explain possibly in the next slides. So some of the objectives that were spelled out in the Sun City Peace Accord, even in the Goma Peace Accord, included, hello? Hello?
We are doing well.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Because I'll see something. So some of the objectives that of the constitutional government, which was set up also within the framework of the Sun City Agreement, they were tasked to reunite, pacify, and rebuild the country, and of course restore the territorial integrity of the country and reestablish the authority of the state. It was at that time DRC was within the framework of what UN calls the failed state, because most of the state machineries and state institutions of governance weren't in place or weren't credible enough that to control the national borders. So it was envisaged that within the framework that you know, the donor philanthropists like World Bank, the IMF, the European Union, which were very supportive about this initiative, that provide some of the seed money that can help, you know, reforming and establishment of these credible institutions like the Parliament, the National Electoral Commission, and many others. And of course, it was also envisaged within the framework that DDR and DDRR mechanism and framework be administered in DRC. And of course, this DDR, I call it as a hardware of the processes of, you know, for a country transitioning from the post-conflict to peace. So it was also envisaged that within the framework of DDR, when you are done DDR, it will be easier for other reforms to be taken place. And now it was very difficult to establish national institutions when DDR hasn't happened, because most of the armed groups were also operating and had arms, and there was no way that you could deter them. And of course, even the United Nations Stabilization Mission, or SIB force, which was asked to guard and guide this transition, really did not do their job well. They were also asked to organize free and transparent elections and to put in place a new political institutions, as I have already mentioned. Now, the complication that came out of this arrangement was that the Sun City Agreement provided a lot of decision making in government, rather than I mean, it provided a lot of difficulties in the implementation of that process. You know, most of the because it also envisaged that when you have an arrangement where the opposition, or which were now former ex-combatants who were now co-opted in government, in the transition government that was supposed to be formed, then most of the people who were within government but from these armed groups served their own interest within this framework of the national government. There was also no political will on the part of the these these ex-combatants who were co-opted in the government to participate in the elections. Some of those who were appointed also to be in the government weren't competent enough. So it looked like it was like, sporting, because you're from one party, you are co-opted. There was very little vetting to ensure that, credible members were also, appointed to be leaders in the institutions that were tasked to be formed. So in short, the Sun City Agreement was not, the objective of the Sun City Agreement were completely not met. But why DDR failed in DRC? I mentioned DDR because SSR was supposed to take place after the DDR. So you will see I'm using the DDR rather than SSR at the moment. So the central government did not provide that institutional leadership. But many times when UN team of experts was doing investigation, especially indictment of some of the drivers of the conflict in Eastern Congo, the government of Congo did not provide that support, and it actually at some point helped to protect some of the people who were supposed to be prosecuted or indicted by the International Criminal Court, or who were wanted to be indicted in the international tribunals. All check and balances on which good governance was based on were effectively moved in that. So the agreement provided incentives that like killed all the option for the democracy and fighting impunity. So it's like it protected perpetrators and perpetrators and drivers of the conflict in DRC from being indicted by the International Criminal Court or other special tribunal that were supposed to be formed. You had some of the important personalities, like Joseph Kabila was the president, Azalia Buberwa and Jean-Pierre Bemba, and Tshisekedi, who is the current president of Congo. These were people who were co-opted in the government, but never subscribed to the principles that were enshrined in the Sun City Peace Accord, Peace Agreement. But they never also allowed their members, because they kept their members, armed groups, in a sizable number of them, not be fully integrated in the national government. There was also high level of corruption. Most of the money that was provided by donors that were supposed to do three things. One, it was an issue of disarmament and issues of people who accepted voluntarily to be integrated. We have evidence of many ex-combatants from the FDLR who volunteered themselves that they will be available for integration. But when they were put in the camps, they were not provided with the skills and the necessary training that was supposed to be provided. Even in terms of the enumeration, because the integration takes on board aspect of the enumeration on the part of the ex-combatants, so that they can survive and be able to survive in future, or have, like, start life again, at least getting some enumeration. So this money was also not provided to most of the more than 10,000 some of the volunteers who were accepted to be demobilized. But of course, there are a number of people who were not demobilized at all or disarmed at all. And some of the ex-combatants who, during the process of being disarmed, ran away from the neighboring countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. So it complicated the whole process. Now, what is the impact of this failed DDR in the current African Great Lakes region? In my view, this process, this failure rendered Eastern DRC, especially North Kivu and South Kivu, to be prone to armed rebel groups up to this moment. And we have seen even recently that a new wave of mercenaries is coming up in DRC, which was never before. Routing of the DRC natural resources continue than ever before, because now, it's like it's nobody's land. Rise of the rebel groups like M23 due to the failure of implementation of the Sun City Peace Agreement. If you remember, the Goma Peace Accord was signed in March 23, 2009. And because DDR and the SSR were one of the conditions that will be undertaken to most of the armed groups. M23 is the same organization which by then was being called CNDP, which signed a peace agreement with the government of DRC in Sun City. So it is the same organization which has transformed from CNDP to now what we call M23 or M23 at the moment. So that's why most of the time you hear them saying, they will say, well, we are here because the government has failed to provide the institutional leadership in terms of providing or meeting the conditions that were set for in the Sun City Peace Agreement. So acts of genocide, war, crime against the humanities are issues that are likely to recur again in DRC, because we are now seeing the tension is going to be very, the tension between Rwanda and DRC at the moment, is so tense in the sense that I cannot foresee that the second genocide would recur, especially extinction of some of the Tutsi elements that are survived in Congo, because the recent statement by the president of DRC calling for the DRC youth. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, loud and clear.
So, okay, fine. So the kind of statement that was made recently by the DRC president calling for the youth in DRC to defend the country, it's a call that might trigger a lot of political masturbation, because as you might have been following up the trends within DRC, most of the elements of the Tutsi who lives in DRC were being haunted, and some of them have been killed. And so the killings is likely to really raise, but there's also a statement that has been made by the Rwanda, Paul Kagame, Rwanda president, who made it very clearly that he cannot accept the war to be fought in his land. Of course, he's accusing the DRC government that is trying to use FDLR to destabilize Rwanda. And this accusation by any standard does not conform to the major two principles that were developed in the past: the Dar es Salaam Declaration on Peace, Security, and Development on the African Districts region, and then the Goma Peace Accord and the Sun City Peace Accord. That all these countries which are party to the International Conference on Great Lakes, they signed to abide to the provision that they will provide support to any transition of any country which is in turmoil, including, by then it was Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, and South Sudan. So all these countries signed to abide to that process, including supporting the DRC Eastern Congo process and the mechanism for DDR and SSR. The current trend also shows that there is no room or possibility for peace in DRC, at least in the near future. Way forward. In my opinion, I think there's a need to do a comprehensive DDR and DDRR. And by the way, DDR with the 3R is mean the 2R, the resettlement and repatriation, was meant to ensure that all those armed rebel groups operating in Eastern Congo that are from the foreign countries, these armed groups be repatriated to their home of origin, to the countries where they come from. But at the same time, you do a sort of a simultaneous DDR arrangement or mechanism within those countries and resettle them, so that when you are sure they have been disarmed in both countries, chances are that you can now administer processes like the SSR. The second aspect is that administration of the security sector administration, especially indictment of the drivers of the conflicts, needs to be done. So we need to do an assessment that can ensure that all the drivers of the conflict in Eastern Congo are indicted by the International Criminal Tribunal, or even set up a special tribunal to indict or prosecute those that have committed crime against humanity, atrocities of genocide, rape, and many other many other criminal acts. The adherence to the Dar es Salaam Declaration. By the way, the Dar es Salaam Declaration is a declaration that provides a very elaborate mechanism, and in 2005, it also preceded with an arrangement for action plan, which was meant to monitor progress of this, to monitor the progress of this implementation of the DDR and the SSR in Eastern Congo. And even the UN and the African Union were in support that the countries party to the African Great Lakes region, or by the name International Conference on Great Lakes region, was an entity that had its own formation with the executive secretary, who happened to be Mama Mulamula, a Tanzanian, who was the first executive secretary of that organization, and was monitoring and implementation of this process. So we think that adhering to the implementation of this process, or implementation to this Dar es Salaam Declaration, ought to be fully implemented. In so doing, we'll be averting the atrocities in DRC, in Eastern Congo. We think a thorough an assessment needs to be done to the drivers, as I mentioned, so that they should be indicted by the International Criminal Tribunal. In conclusion, I just want to say two major issues. One, unfolding event about tension existing between Rwanda and DRC amount to what we call early warning of imminent war in the near future between the two countries. And even political statements that are emanating from both leaders does not suggest that in the near future we are in for the best solution. But again, we have seen also that the East Africa has taken the brigade in DRC. In my opinion, presence of this is not going to solve the problem, because it doesn't address the root cause of the problem. Because what they are doing is like they are clinging on the aspirations of countries that countries like Rwanda and Uganda, who have a mission to accomplish in DRC. Rwanda is fighting a number of negative forces that are against this government in DRC. Uganda has also a mission to make sure that LLA and ADF are exterminated in Eastern Congo. And so while the region and the Africa and the African Union, the UN, is serious about ending the state of insecurity in Eastern Congo, we don't think that the kind of arrangement that has been put in place by the East Africa community might bear any benefit. I'm glad my own country, Tanzania, never volunteered to bring in the soldiers, although we are part of the FIB mission and the stabilization force in DRC under MONUSCO. Another aspect, which is the last aspect I want to touch on, is just the possibility that another genocide is likely to happen in DRC with regard to the elements of the Tutsi ethnic group that exist in DRC. Because of the political statements I've made recently, especially from the DRC president, on the need to call the youth to guard their own country. And unfortunately, this statement would definitely trigger a lot of enthusiasm on the youth that to hunt any person they regard as an enemy, and especially the Tutsi ethnic element in DRC. Thank you very much, and I thank you for your attention. If there's any question, I would be more than happy to respond to on any aspect that touches any conflict within the countries within the Great African, the African Great Lakes region. But also, I've also been well involved in the Comoro crisis, Comoro peace, and Madagascar, Burundi, and Sierra Leone. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much indeed, Asa. We thank you very much for your time and for this wonderful presentation. And since, unfortunately, we don't have enough time, we've actually gone past the time, I would like to suggest that we invite you again. And yes, to speak to us on this same issue, so that we can also raise enough questions and have enough discussion. As you can see, the turnout was very good, so that shows that people were interested in what you are going to say. And once again, we apologize for the miscommunication that happened because of the technology, etc. So thank you very much indeed, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and see you next Wednesday. Always the same time, always the same link. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. Where are you coming from?
Nigeria, hoping to meet you in the future for the representation for us.
No problem. I'm more than ready. Anything,
right,
anything
thank you
on.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I had a very
Although
good opportunity.
But next time that we meet, we are going to ask the question.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Where are you from?
Tanzania.
Wewe unaitwa nani?
Naitwa Gertrude Chatu.
Unasoma wapi?
Ni sisomi, nafanya kazi.
Wapi?
Nafanya kazi na shirika moja inaitwa International Media Support.
Okay.
Niko Dar.
Okay. And your name is Gertrude John, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Nimefurahi kukufahamu.
Nilikuwa nafanya kazi zamani, ni mwanafunzi wa Dr. George.
Mtalemwa, eh? Okay. Okay. Nashukuru sana. Mimi niko Wizara Mambo ya Nje.
Asante sana, nashukuru kufahamu.
Sasa kulikuwa na disturb. Wewe ulifuata kutoka mwanzo?
Hapana, nimeingia katikati wakati wewe unarejea ndo na mimi nimeingia. Another meeting. Yes.
Okay. Sawa, hamna shida.
Asante. Next time tutatia vizuri.
Hamna shida. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Wasalimie.
Okay.
very much for joining Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability in Africa and across the world. And many greetings from Juba in South Sudan, where we are attending the Peace Conference organized by the African Peace Research and Education Association in collaboration with the International Peace Research Association. Today we have a very important topic, and the theme today is Aristotle's notion of proportional equality, its application to resolving equality discrepancies in Tanzania, the land of Kilimanjaro, the Serengeti, and Zanzibar. And the speaker today is Dr. Longino Rutagwelera Kamuhabwa. Dr. Longino Kamuhabwa is principal of Songea Catholic Institute of Technical Education in Tanzania. He's also senior lecturer in philosophy and ethics. He has published quite a lot. Some of his publications include Aristotle on Rhetoric and Persuasive Skills, examples from political campaigns in African politics. He has also written intellectual and moral formation components of integral education foundations from ancient Greek philosophy, and also Aristotle's notion of proportional equality, a contribution to resolving social political discrepancies in Tanzania, which was recently published in the Journal of Sociology and Development of St. Augustine University of Tanzania. It's a pleasure having you, Longino. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. We are all looking forward to listening to you. I would like now to ask everybody to please mute your microphones, except the speaker, and he was